All right, people, strap in because NASCAR in 2026 is absolutely unhinged right now, and I am here for it. We are only 4 races into this Cup Series season, and already, we've got blown tires, garage fights, garage drama, a YouTuber taking on the entire NASCAR establishment, Kyle Busch calling out his own team, Kyle Petty going nuclear, and Denny Hamlin pointing fingers at everybody. We've got suspensions, we've got controversy, we've got a race at Phoenix that turned into a complete and total tire apocalypse. Oh, and somewhere in the middle of all of this, Ryan Blaney somehow managed to win a race. This is not a slow news week. This is NASCAR doing what NASCAR does best, making sure you absolutely cannot look away. So today, we are going to break down every single one of these stories. We're going to talk about the tire disaster at Phoenix, what actually caused it, and who Denny Hamlin is blaming for the whole thing. We're going to get into the Ross Chastain crew suspensions and what that whole situation means going forward. And then we are going to spend a good chunk of time on the story that has the entire NASCAR community split right down the middle. Cletus McFarland, Richard Childress Racing, and the question that everybody is asking, does this guy belong in a NASCAR race car? And the reactions coming out of the garage have been absolutely brutal. But before we get into all of it, if you are a real NASCAR fan, if you watch every single race, if you stay tuned in between weekends because you actually care about this sport, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel. We want this to be the home for NASCAR fans who take the sport seriously. So let's go. Let's start in the desert because the Straight Talk Wireless 500 at Phoenix Raceway this past Sunday was an absolute mess. And not just the kind of mess where a couple cars get wrecked and everyone moves on. No, this was a full-blown second stage, multiple drivers at the same time, tires going flat everywhere, what is even happening kind of chaos. In Stage 2 at Phoenix, multiple drivers had tires go down, and one stretch on lap 157 was particularly wild, with William Byron, Noah Gragson, Riley Herbst, Michael McDowell, and Connor Zeilish all suffering flats in a very short window. Total Motorsport, 5 drivers, 1 lap, tires just blowing up all over a 1-mile oval. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And when something like that happens, the first place everyone looks is Goodyear. Except, here's the twist, and this is the part that makes this story actually interesting. This appears to be one of those rare instances where the tire failures were not Goodyear's fault. Total Motorsport, that's unusual. Typically, when NASCAR has a tire problem, you point at the supplier. But that's not what happened at Phoenix. So, whose fault was it then? Well, Denny Hamlin went on his Actions Detrimental podcast and laid it all out. Hamlin put the blame squarely on the teams, explaining that everyone knows lower air pressure means more speed on long runs, and these teams just keep pushing it. In his words, we certainly know that the lower the air pressure, the faster you're going to be on the long run, and these teams just keep pushing it. Oval Insider. And there's the problem right there. For Phoenix, the recommended tire pressures were 14 psi in the left front, 30 psi in the right front, 14 psi in the left rear, and 26 psi in the right rear. Teams generally run lower pressure than recommended on the right side to gain mechanical grip and downforce, but the risk of tire failure goes up in proportion. The sports rush. So you've got 36 teams all making their own calculated gambles on how low they can go before the tire gives up. And at Phoenix on Sunday, a whole bunch of them found out they pushed too far. The crews made the call, the drivers paid the price, and chaos followed. Now, this becomes even more interesting when you factor in that Goodyear brought the same tire compound to Phoenix that had already shown significant wear at the championship race in fall 2025. Total Motorsport. So, everyone already knew this tire had limits. Everyone knew what it did in November, and teams still went out there and ran low pressure on it with the new 750 horsepower package on board. That's a choice. That's a calculated risk that blew up, literally, in a lot of people's faces. Drivers who had tire issues at Phoenix included Kyle Busch, Shane Van Gisbergen, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, William Byron, and Ryan Preece. Electric e-bikes. That is an absolutely stacked list of names, all having the same kind of day because teams wanted a little extra grip. Now, somewhere in the middle of all that madness, Ryan Blaney found a way to survive. Blaney passed a total of 49 cars over the course of the race to claim the win, sweeping the weekend for Team Penske and picking up the 18th victory of his Cup Series career. Electric e-bikes. That is an incredible number, 49 cars, which tells you just how wild the race was from front to back. But the bigger story coming out of Phoenix wasn't who won. It was the tires, the chaos, and the fact that NASCAR is going to have some serious conversations before Las Vegas about whether teams need clearer guardrails on how far they're allowed to push tire pressures before the races turn into survival sessions. Because Sunday was not a great look for anybody. Now, let's back up 1 week, because everything that happened at Phoenix has context, and that context starts at Circuit of Americas. At the COTA race on March 1st, the right rear wheel separated from Ross Chastain's #1 Trackhouse Chevrolet while the race was running under green flag conditions. The incident occurred on lap 75, and the detached wheel created a dangerous situation on the road course. And look, when a wheel comes off a car at racing speed, NASCAR doesn't mess around. This isn't a matter of discussion or debate. Rear tire changer Kenneth Pozega and jackman Ashley Appleby were both suspended for the next 2 NASCAR Cup Series races under NASCAR rule sections governing lost tires, which mandate a 2-race suspension for 2 pit crew members and a 2-lap penalty for the team. That suspension runs through Phoenix and Las Vegas, with the 2 crew members eligible to return at Darlington on March 22nd. Now here's where it gets more layered. Ross Chastain himself was not suspended. He raced at Phoenix, but the 2-lap penalty at COTA did some serious damage. In the wake of that in-race penalty, Chastain finished 35th at COTA and dropped to 20th in the driver's standings. That's a brutal points hit this early in a season. You're already playing catch-up before you even get to the first oval on the schedule. And then he showed up to Phoenix missing 2 of his pit crew guys, working with replacement crew members at a short track where pit stops can absolutely make or break your day. That's not an easy situation for anybody. The whole thing also put a spotlight on something that was already simmering in the garage, because with Chastain cleared to race while his crew members sat out, some drivers felt like the punishment wasn't distributed fairly. Ross felt it, his team felt it, and at Phoenix, that tension had consequences that we talked about in our last video. The bottom line on this one is simple. Trackhouse Racing is already starting 2026 in a points hole, understaffed on pit road and dealing with drama they absolutely didn't need. For a team that came into this season with championship expectations, this is not the start they drew up in the offseason. Okay, now we get to the story that has been the hottest topic in all of NASCAR. And I'll be honest with you, this one has layers to it because the reactions have come from every direction and some of them are absolutely wild. On March 4th, 2026, Garrett Mitchell, better known online as Cletus McFarland, announced he had signed a 2-year deal with Richard Childress Racing to drive the number 33 Chevrolet in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. His first race is set for April 4th at Rockingham Speedway, with super speedway dates at Talladega and Daytona potentially to follow. Now, if you're not familiar with Cletus McFarland, he's a YouTube star, over 4.5 million subscribers, a massive car culture audience. He's made a career out of doing wild stuff with cars and trucks on his property, burning rubber, going fast, entertaining people. Genuinely likable guy by almost all accounts. But here's the thing, and this is where the NASCAR community absolutely erupted. Garrett Mitchell only has one official NASCAR National Series start on his resume, a Truck Series race at Daytona in February, and that ended in a self-inflicted crash just 6 laps in. 6 laps, 1 race, 1 crash, and now he's in a Richard Childress racing car in NASCAR's second highest series. McFarland had actually crashed during his Truck Series approval test at Rockingham before Daytona, and then crashed again on lap 5 of his only Truck Series start at Daytona itself. 2 crashes before you've even completed a full race weekend, and NASCAR approved him to keep moving up the ladder. The garage did not take this quietly. Let's start with Kyle Busch, who, remember, also drives for Richard Childress Racing. His own teammates' organization just signed this deal, and Busch did not hold back for even a second. Speaking to the media at Phoenix, Busch joked that his 10-year-old son, Brexton, has run more races than Cletus, and referenced Denny Hamlin's famous line about running 10,000 races before making it to Cup. Oval Insider. He basically said, look, I understand this is how NASCAR works, money talks, but the experience gap is real and somebody needs to say it. Busch did acknowledge the reality of the situation, saying, when you've got drivers with funding and are able to come up here and do this sort of stuff, then by all means. We haven't stopped letting people race yet, so why now? Oval Insider. Which is an interesting point, because Busch isn't entirely wrong that this isn't a new phenomenon in NASCAR. Money has always opened doors in this sport.
But then Kyle Petty came in and took it to a completely different level. Richard Petty's son came out and said flatly that internet sensations like McFarland have no place on racetracks with stock car racing drivers. That's a strong statement from someone with deep roots in the sport. Kyle Petty isn't some random critic. He's NASCAR royalty, and when he says something like that, people listen. Then there's Bubba Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, who handled it with some excellent dry humor. Kraft summed it up on social media with brutal efficiency, writing that crashing in the Rockingham truck test and then crashing on lap 5 of your only truck start was good enough for approval, before adding that he doesn't blame Cletus one bit and that anyone would jump at the same chance. SiriusXM NASCAR Radio's Pete Pistone echoed that same concern, saying that Mitchell is great for the sport, YouTube views and Instagram followers should not be factors in the approval process, and that McFarland is getting tossed into the deep end before he's ready. The fans on social media were even more direct. One response on X called the signing an embarrassment to the sport, arguing that there are actual drivers who have earned that seat and deserve the opportunity more than someone with a single truck start and a crash to show for it. Now, here's where I want to give you the other side of this, because the debate is genuinely more complicated than just he's not qualified. Mark Martin, NASCAR Hall of Famer, someone with serious credibility in this sport, came out and said the McFarland deal is actually a big win for NASCAR. Martin's argument is that McFarland has a bigger social media following than any current Cup Series driver, and bringing someone with that reach into the sport means more eyes, more fans, more ticket sales. And that's not nothing. NASCAR has been fighting an audience growth battle for years. If Cletus McFarland gets 500,000 YouTube subscribers to tune into a race they never would have watched otherwise, that's real value. Martin also said he's actually watched McFarland turn laps in ARCA competition and believes the driver has shown he can handle a stock car. So it's not like a Hall of Famer is just throwing blind support behind a marketing play. Martin is saying he's seen enough on track to believe there's something there. And McFarland himself, on the Dale Jr. Download podcast, Cletus fired back at all the critics with a direct message, saying their words simply don't affect him. Stone cold. Guy's got 4.6 million subscribers, a 2-year deal with a legendary NASCAR organization, and a race at Rockingham coming up in April. At some point, the track is going to settle the debate. Either he handles it and starts building something, or he doesn't, and the critics get to say they were right. The real question this whole situation raises is bigger than just Cletus McFarland. It's about NASCAR's approval process. How do you balance the genuine value that someone like McFarland brings to the sport's audience with the legitimate safety concern of putting an inexperienced driver in a 175-mile-per-hour race car alongside professional racers who have thousands of laps under their belts? That's not a simple answer, and honestly, the sport hasn't had a great answer to that question in a long time. Come April 4th at Rockingham, we'll start getting some answers. So let's zoom out for a second and look at what the first 4 races of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season have actually told us. We've got a tire situation at Phoenix that exposed teams gambling against Goodyear's recommendations and getting burned for it, literally. We've got Trackhouse racing playing from behind after a costly mechanical failure at COTA, putting 2 crew members in suspension and Ross Chastain in the back of the standings. We've got Denny Hamlin warning everyone that the teams themselves are the problem when tires blow, not the manufacturer. We've got Kyle Busch calling out his own organization's decision in the paddock with cameras rolling. And we've got a YouTuber with 1 truck race to his name about to suit up for Richard Childress Racing in NASCAR's second highest series while the entire garage argues about whether he belongs there. And Ryan Blaney is out here quietly winning races while the sport implodes around him. And honestly, that's just kind of a Blaney thing to do. Here's what I know. 2026 is going to be a fascinating season. The drama is real, the controversies are real, the debate about what NASCAR should be and who it should let in, that's real too, and it's not going anywhere. And if you want to be part of the conversation every single week, because this kind of stuff is going to keep happening and we are going to cover every bit of it, subscribe to NASCAR Nation Report right now. We're building this community race by race, week by week, for fans who actually watch the sport and have opinions worth hearing. Drop a comment below. Are you Team Cletus, or do you think NASCAR's approval process is a problem? Do you think the tire chaos at Phoenix falls on the teams, on Goodyear, or on NASCAR for not setting clearer rules? I want to know where you stand. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at Las Vegas.